And George Teague right now. The guy's a legend at Alabama, legend in Dallas. Still doing work for the Cowboys, pre and post game stuff. You can actually catch him right on Cowboys.com, which is pretty cool. And that also is a good sign, George. That means you're still a part of the family, which is pretty cool because, truthfully, I think it says a lot about the Cowboys. Like, how has your relationship come back to the Cowboys? Like, how did you end up doing the stuff you're doing with them now as far as analysis is concerned?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting on how it all just kind of fell in my lap a little bit. I had actually got cold called by a guy and just asked if I really wanted to do it, being an analyst, kind of based upon, I guess just doing interviews, and speaking, being a high school football coach and I'm still being on television a little bit. And the guy just said, "Hey, man, we got a spot for you. Would you want to give it a whirl?" And I was nervous about it because I'm like, well, I hadn't actually done that before. And he's like, "I just think you would be good. Come on out and try it." So here I am 3-4 years later, doing analyst work for the Cowboys and for CBS.
Well, it's a little more enjoyable this year. Yeah, and you mentioned you are doing work for CBS too, but it's a little bit more enjoyable this year because I feel like Cowboys are on a bit of an uptick. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you're 2-2-1. You're going to be your favorite against Carolina, and a lot of the success. I want to ask you really what you think the main reason is. But I looked at Dak Prescott and I think, man, it's really cool to see a guy like that we all root for playing so well again. So the question I want to ask you is like, what is it about him this year that has allowed him to kind of rediscover that gear of greatness and be back or moving himself back towards that MVP conversation?
Well, Pete, system matters, I guess. And he is comfortable. He is very in tune to what's going on with with Schottenheimer, Brian. And I led him to be rejuvenated and more successful here. He's had great coaches around him, but just the system that they'll be able to use, that giving him more opportunities to go underneath the center, more play action, really have established a run, which we hadn't had in a couple of years. That's benefiting Dak very well. So I think if they stay on this trend and allow Dak to understand all the calls, all the checks, he's a pro. They always know that, right? But it's just different when you're totally in line with your head coach.
So, and that's interesting because the last thing I think a lot of people in my shoes who don't know the team like you do, right? Especially somebody like you who's been in the locker rooms, like, Schottenheimer, I was like, oh, that's cool because I always respected his dad and I knew he'd been doing it for a while. But it was underwhelming for a lot of people. It's starting to look like, I mean, I think home run is a stretch, but it's starting to look like a real good hire.
Yeah, and I will be with you. I was kind of optimistic. I mean, not so optimistic in the beginning. Hey, not having any head coaching experience. He's coached for 28, 30, how many ever years, and never even really had a shot. This kind of thing. So we're going, all right, is he really the guy? But then once you actually got in the locker room, and this is what's kind of I think drew me to him a little bit more as a fan and as a former player, that I actually got to sit in on the team meeting. And I guess got to saw how they started, how he interacted with it, how he was bringing competition back. Silly little games, but he always got them into trying to win, not just being status quo and developing a team atmosphere. I feel like the Cowboys haven't had that togetherness. So he's really driving that. It's simple. We're talking about the word culture with someone else. He's developing a culture of winning and wanting to compete, and I think that's turning over into the game. You see it when we got so many guys hurt. We're still playing pretty well.
Now, for people you don't know, you didn't play for Marty Schottenheimer, but you played against him, and like you obviously were in circles where you had probably had buddies who played for him. Like he was like, he's a Hall of Fame coach, right? Like, so what did you hear about him that you kind of notice in his son?
The guys are going to be disciplined and they're always going to work hard. It didn't matter who they had or what they were doing. It seemed like they were always fast, sharp, just on point. A lot of times you can have talented guys, but they're not doing the right things. I think that happened with Marty when you're watching him coach. They have to try to cover these wide receivers and where they were going. It was very difficult. They didn't seem like very flashy guys, but it was hard to cover them. you see that with our offense now. I'm sure he's taking a playbook, a page out of his dad's playbook. The way he's utilizing, not even having CD, right? He's using Pickens and finding the matchups to put him in the best position. I watched the play against the Jets where they actually did some motions and made some things. It was a thing of beauty, man. And it wasn't. It was all scheme. Where they put him, and then you have the quarterback. Dak just dropped the ball in over three guys. It was unbelievable, man. I was just in awe as a player. Like, now what would I do? How would we defend that? And you can't. So that was purely coaching.
That's a good sign when he has a guy like you asking questions like that, right? I mean, they're doing something right.
That's right.
What about that Jets game? I felt like the Cowboys, their fan base, I feel like everybody really needed that just to go into an opposing city and just beat down a team. I mean, I felt like for the esteem of the team, I mean, that's got to feel good. Were you ever in a situation like that where the team was kind of, lukewarm, and then you got to beat somebody's ass and you felt, okay, like this is it, and you were able to kind of grow from that game?
Yeah, and I have to. I'm going to admit first that people here in Dallas were very worried about losing to the Jets. You lose to an 0-4 Jets, even no matter how good you think they are, it was super important. You have someone like Justin Fields, running the ball, and we haven't been good at that. So, man, I was terrified. I got to tell you, it did make me think of games where you couldn't get past the hump. In Green Bay, man, we could never beat Dallas. And I ended up playing for them, but we could never beat them. It was like, oh God, why we got to play these guys again?
Yeah.
This kind of thing. Even with backup quarterbacks, Jason Garrett ended up scoring 40 points on us or whatever. So it's deflating, when you lose games that you think you're supposed to win for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So for them to go up to New York, play the way they did, actually get pressure on their quarterback, not letting him run around, and not giving up the deep balls all the time like they were before. It was just a big sign of, hey, we could be onto something good here.
Looking at this game against Carolina and you being a defensive guy, what would be your message in the locker room to the Cowboys as they get set to take on the Carolina Panthers in a game, again, where they're favored by 3.5 points? Not like that would affect the message, but they are favored in this game.
Don't slip on Carolina and being away again. You still got to go play in someone else's home. Those are always hard. Also, don't get comfortable just because now the fan base is kind of, woo, hey, they're going to turn on you. You lose to Carolina, see what's going to happen on Monday morning, right after the game. Is you can't go in and just start thinking that I've arrived. You got to start stacking games on top of one another. So you beat a team that hasn't won one. Now you got another team that's, decent, but still you're worried about Bryce Young. What is he going to do? How is he going to do things? You got a running back in Rico Dowdle, who the revenge game is something you have to account for, right? He just rushed for how many? I don't know, almost 200 yards or whatever it was. Do you think he don't want to do that against the Cowboys after you let him go? You don't give him a chance. So you better come ready to play, because you don't want to be on the Angry Run segment of somebody's TV show. So it's still business, and that's the thing. It's still business. You still got to have guys hurt. Secondary has to show up, but the line going to have to be on point.
When you talk about, the Cowboys defense, Trayvon Diggs, Bland, Hooker, Wilson, like they got swagger, right? They got some dudes. And I'm curious what you think stands out to you about how they are playing, how that unit is playing.
I think that there's been a constant improvement. So I don't want it to be like totally negative on it, just because in the beginning it felt like technically we weren't sound in the secondary. We have a lot of talent. Those guys, man, they can cover. Just think about how many interceptions they've had over the past couple of years, right? But there's been some things that they haven't been on the same page for whatever reason. And you've had the injuries, Trayvon trying to come back, Bland coming back, and you had Elam out there who wasn't playing that well. But I think that Schottenheimer got to him to start talking about, hey, we got to do all this together. The linemen have to be better. So they figured out a way to get some pressure to allow those guys to play they need the way they need to play. So um, overall, I still don't have them. I got them as an average grade. I think I need to see it some more because they're going to play some pretty good teams here in the second half of the season with some very talented wide receivers. I just feel like if we can stay together and really figure out what Eberflus is trying to do with his own coverages and figure out how to read and play the right leverage, we'll be okay.
When you get that cold call, right, and they say, all right, we want you to be an analyst, right? How does that affect the way that you watch these games now? Because I love when I get a guy like you saying, grade. Now I'm thinking film. Now I'm thinking you're really watching these guys, right? Like you're not just passively watching. How do you watch this team? Like, what's your perspective? And how do you come up with a grade on an offense or a defense or a player?
Man, you know what? It messes me up trying to watch the game now as an analyst because I just can't watch it just for fun. I used to like to go to the Cowboys game, eat my popcorn, my beer, maybe say something about the scheme that I thought I saw from watching the game. But now it's like, man, I'm going to have to talk about that play. What really happened? Can I rewind that back? Now I am diving into film and really trying to find out what's happening with that and trying to call people to find out, hey, do I have this right in what I'm thinking? So it becomes more intense, as far as film study, knowing I'm about to come on your show and different things and say, hey, what can I bring to someone else about finer details? Fans, we just talk about, man, he got burnt, he got ran over, he got trucked. Well, I need to know why now. Well, why is Dak being so successful? What is really happening? And when you start to go look at it, you can see it, or you start talking to people and they go, hey, you don't know what he really did at practice today or what coach did for them. So it's hard. It's still fun for me. I'm still a fan of football. I try to watch the Alabama games, the Cowboy games, and just try to be a fan. But ultimately, I'm going to dive right back into the film and be like, "Yeah, I don't know what y'all talking about because I actually watched this thing over and over and over again, and that wasn't cover two. That was something else." I enjoy it though. I do love it, man. Hats off to you for what you do and how you do it, man. It's not easy, but I love being an analyst.
Yeah, man. I got a couple more for you. I want to watch one more about the Cowboys and then a little bit about your career, because you were one of my guys growing up. You actually weren't one of my guys. You hurt my Hurricanes. So we'll talk about that in a second. I was a huge Miami guy. So when they get CeeDee Lamb back, okay, and if the Cowboys are able to stay healthy, how good can this team be?
Oh, it's gonna be they're gonna be lights out. Honestly, I felt that way before I even saw how good George Pickens could be by himself. But now I think Pickens has actually proved that, hey, I can be a number one guy. If you're sitting with two number one guys out here, and they can try to scheme up where they're matching. It's not even talking about Jake Ferguson, who's doing his thing, 10, 11 catches a game.
Yeah.
Come on, man. And Javonte Williams running the ball the way he's running. This is an offense that you're going to be like, and they don't even have all the starting offensive linemen in there. Give me a break. We should be able to score 40 points a game, and that's going to allow the defense to pin their ears back and do some really good things. So I think the conversation changes to where we didn't really think could they win the division. I think you can. You see the Eagles lose, the Jets the Giants are kind of whatever. Jaden Daniels hurt with the Commanders. Man, you might see the Cowboys sitting back on top again, and popping it in the playoffs, where a lot of us weren't really feeling that, early on.
Dude, you bring up a great point, which I think we forget about because it's kind of basic. The better your offense does, the better your defense does. I mean, it's just like they're not on the field as long. Now they're able to attack because they have a lead. Like, it really changes things up a great deal.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I loved it as a defensive back when I knew that now our guys are going to get the front seven, the linemen, they're playing differently. Yeah, you still got to stop the run, all the stuff that, the normal cliches that you hear. But when you got some points, and they got to go hurry up or try to throw the ball to be a little bit more aggressive. Now those D linemen get excited, man. Them linebackers start getting excited. Now I get excited because, oh, the ball's got to come out quick. I get a jump. I get to make some kind of, take a gamble, or a risky play. It comes so much more fun. And then you start winning games in a different way.
In your career and your evolution as a player, what did Gene Stallings mean to you at Alabama? I thought it was, for me growing up as a kid, like I knew Alabama had that amazing tradition with Bear Bryant, but it had kind of gone dormant for a little bit. And then you guys brought it back, man, big time. Like, what was Coach Stallings and his role in that? Because he's a special dude.
Yeah, he was big in it, and he was a very personable coach. You talking about a player's coach? He was that for me. He talked to me a lot about the NFL and doing those things, but more importantly, he talked to me about my high school girlfriend, who is now my wife. He talked to me about my mom and my dad and family and all these things. He had his family around a lot. John Mark, his son being involved. So it was also about family, and I think that led to the family in the locker room. So that kind of goes into what I'm saying about Schottenhauer in that sense that hey, you're pulling everybody together, and then we started playing for each other, and it became lights out.
Dude, that United Way commercial with his son was to me one of the best. Like, I don't even want to call it marketing because it was like they were just doing the right thing, but it grabbed me like never before, like because you see somebody like Gene Stallings and you're like, oh wait, that's affecting him too. And
Yes.
how is he dealing with it? And the kid was always around. That was beautiful, like emotional stuff, man.
Yeah, it is, and I'll give a selfish plug for some friends of ours. There's this documentary just coming out. It's
Yeah.
called "Do Right" by Gene Stallings, and it's really talking about his kid in Alabama and how, the the travel of how Coach Stallings has affected so many people through, his Rise program where he's helping kids with cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, those type of things. So it's pretty cool to be able to see, and you really learn a lot more about Gene Stallings.
Dude, that's so he that's just coming out.
Yes, yes. So I actually, and the reason why I know because I was interviewed to be in part of it and talk about those things, and it's it's pretty touching, but it's also motivating because there's a lot. You might not like it because there's a lot of Alabama football in it,
I like it. Come on now, I like
you
it.
know. But it does get into the roots of the family and how he's really impacted people off the field. So it's telling a story through his coaching career. Being at A&M, being in the pros, and ultimately getting to Alabama. So it's called Do Right.
Yeah.
Just be on the lookout for it. And
He was another one of those guys like to talk about football, like, amazing college coach, not so great in the pros, but then he realizes, okay, let me come back to college and dominate. You know what I mean? Like,
mhm.
because we see these guys go up and down. Like, we're talking about Belichick more now than ever. And it's just like, it's almost like two different sports. Is it not?
Oh, it's totally different. You can't compare the two. You can't treat people the same way. I learned that when I was looking to be at a professional level coach, and I once I had a shot at it, and I was actually in the locker room, I was like, man, this is different. These are grown men. You can't motivate them the same. It's really more about money. You know, regardless of whatever we want to say about NIL and all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But the games are just different. So you shouldn't expect that you can do the exact same thing on the collegiate level that you can on the pros.
All right. So that Sugar Bowl, like when you guys make it to the mountaintop, walk me through like that emotion, that game, and winning that game because it was really special. I mean, it was a crown, it was a feather in your cap and Coach Stallings' cap. But like to me, again, it was Alabama being Alabama again, and it's almost like the programs really never look back.
Yeah. I think we started something pretty big and knowing that, hey, you got to have the right coach and the right players there. Playing in a national championship game, I can't even really put into words what that actually feels like. It's there. And at that time, you're the only game on TV. The only people, they're only watching Alabama and Miami, millions of people just watching this thing. It's on the line for one game. And as a player, that is like the pinnacle thing of just, man, we've made it. now what? We've had a whole month to try to prepare for one team and one game, and let alone they're saying, Alabama, you can't win.
Yeah.
This is the Hurricanes. They got all these dudes and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, golly, man, we worked so hard to get here. We go through an SEC championship. Most people don't even remember that was the first year of the
Yep.
SEC championship. We barely got past Florida to get in. So, it's just amazing type of atmosphere. I ran out of my shoe on the very first play. Y'all go watch it. You can see I was just I don't even know why it came off. It's never ever happened before. I think I was just mad crazy to even be here and just to hear the crowd. So I'll never forget it though, man. It was so much fun. New Orleans, just national championship against the Hurricanes with all their dudes, Gino Torretta, Heisman Trophy
Yeah.
winner, Lamar, Thomas and Horace Copeland and the running back. I mean, it was just
Kevin
so
Williams. They
many
had
dudes.
all those
Kevin Williams,
guys. You just Steve
man.
McGuire. They were both. They were everywhere, dude. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was a big one.
All right. Last question for you. I can't let you out of here without asking you about this because, again, I'm from Philly. I grew up an Eagles guy, but at the same time, I respect the Cowboys. I have, and I thought in the fall of 2000 when, and I'm going to ask you when T.O.
Theo.
takes that look, man. I don't know. You could tell me. You probably never have to buy a drink in Dallas for the rest of your life. I mean, so when he takes that he goes to the middle of the field, like, can you tell me like the sequence of events leading up to that, and what ended up with you doing something that was one of the more celebrated moves in franchise history, even though it's like the last thing you think?
Yeah, man. Games get heated, right? I think you see people talk. You just saw last night where people were kind of taunting each other, whatever. Well, they're probably more taunting back in the day when we played, and T.O. was very well known to be able to taunt some guys, and he and I have had a few words throughout the game, and they were just wobbling up on us, kicking our butts. I tend to blame this on two people on why I actually got kicked out. One is Darren Woodson because he got kicked out early. He tossed his helmet, he got frustrated or whatever. And then I didn't have my twin safety in there. And the second person I blame is my brother because he got kicked out of the game at the same time I did. But that'll be for another story when we come on, right? So there's all kind of emotions going on. And then once he runs out to the field the first time, he just kind of to the middle of the star. You're just like, you really just kind of go like, wow, they really just do that? You kind of like, okay, I got it. That's a good one, man. You thought about that a little bit, executed it very well. But again, as we were talking noise and we started fighting a little bit, literally scrapping a little bit on certain plays, I started watching him like, okay, he's about to score again. What is he gonna do, Pete? What is he gonna do? And as soon as he started taking off, I lost it, brother. I just went and we were about to put the rest to all of this stuff that we've been doing all game. And so I chased him out to the field and saying what was going through, man. I was just ready to fight. We finna scrap right now. I forgot that Pete was watching. I forgot that my mama was watching. I forgot that my wife was watching and everybody else. And we were just gonna get it on. So it ended up costing me about $25,000 and I got ejected out of the game. But thankfully I've been known for something that has resonated in a positive way, of defending your house and your turf and sticking up for things that shouldn't happen at your home.
It was the right thing to do, it was, and I think people everywhere, like I remember watching it, being like, man, that's from then on, like, you were an awesome player, but personally, I didn't have any like, oh, George Teague. Now I was like, George Teague, that's my man. Like that's a special thing to do, and it's cool, and it's really cool to talk to you now, man. I look forward to seeing more of your work. Where can people find you? So, like after the game on Sunday, like what's the natural rhythm for you, and then being an analyst for CBS as well?
Yeah, appreciate it very much. So, and thank you for having me on. So
Yeah.
3 ways, a couple different ways you can find me. You can find me on Teague's Take Podcast on YouTube. On Monday night, we shoot live. We actually talk about Alabama and we show film. We break down the film and can give you a replay of it, what you talk about, analyzing what really happened in those
Teague's
plays.
Take.
Teague's Take.
Okay.
Teague's Take Podcast. All right. Second thing, if you're in the area, Analyst on Sunday mornings, 10:30 Central Time, live television when we're breaking down the Cowboys before the game all the time. So on CBS Channel 11, 10:30 Central to 11, and then post game on Mondays is when I'm on DallasCowboys.com and on FanDuel with Cowboys flashback. So now we're showing film again, and I'm breaking down plays to try to give you highlights or concerns that we have. So 3 ways: Sundays, Mondays, twice.
You keep my boy Kyle Yeomans in line over there?
Oh yeah, man. Kyle is the man, man. He's good. I'm glad he actually helps me and gives me insight and all that kind of stuff. So I make sure I told him I'll talk to you, brother.
Yeah, tell him I said hello, and man, God bless that dude. First baby.
That's right.
There were 3 of them.
That's right. That's crazy.
That's a lot, man. All right, George Teague, thank you so much for the visit, man. It's really cool to talk to you.
All right. I'll talk to you later, brother.
You got it. See you, George. There he goes, George Teague. It's really cool to have a guy like that has an impact on you kind of for the better part of your life growing up. And it's positive, right? And I think for me, it culminated in that episode with T.O. I mean, I always knew he was a really good player, but I didn't know he was that kind of guy. And yeah,